Hi, this is Ben. I am here with two senior leaders at DTI, Ryan and Brad, who are going to talk a little bit today about um, some frequently asked questions that people have when they're thinking about enterprise content management, when they're thinking about digital transformation, when they're just trying to understand about how to address some of the process concerns that they might have, some challenges that your business sees as you grow and scale. So just to sort of set the stage here, where are we in this industry? Document scanning has been around for a long time. Are we moving to a world that's truly and completely paperless?
Hey, Ben. Yeah, good question. And that was certainly the goal for a long time, is everybody had this vision of a paperless world. And no, I don't know that we'll ever get there, nor do I really think that that's the ideal. The focus when this technology started coming out was really about that paper, and thinking that if you could get the paper out of the process, you're removing cost and inefficiencies. And really the focus should have been on the processes and not the paper. So the customers and the projects that we work on today, there is a lot that has been digitized already. We're working with emails and PDFs and already some paperless documents, but the processes are still broken. So most of our time is really spent working on those processes, and we think that's where organizations will find the most value as they look at digital transformation type projects.
Um, so, so just thinking about that piece of the puzzle here, there are a ton of options about how companies can improve their processes. There's a lot of solutions. So how do you end up determining what's the right process and what's the right technology that's involved?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into that. What we're seeing in this space is that the projects vary in size and scope and importance, but there are a lot of them that are going on, and it's a busy space. There's a lot of different manufacturers, software manufacturers, that are coming into the market every month, every year, and it is a lot to sort through. So when you first kind of get into these projects, I think it's important to look at where they originate. And a lot of the most successful projects are really driven by top-down C-level executives, the ones that are setting the vision and the strategy for the organization. They need to help guide where these digital transformation initiatives need to play. They should be aligned with that corporate vision and strategy. So once you have that sponsorship and that vision for where the C-level wants to go, then you can start identifying the projects that fall within those categories. Some may be customer side, some may be back office. Again, let your corporate strategy kind of dictate that direction. Once you find a project or two that you want to, that you think is going to make an impact to your organization, start working on your scope, and then you can start finding vendors that align in that digital transformation area that you seem to be in. One of the things that we're hearing a lot of today is that 40% of all the technology spending is going to be in digital transformation projects in 2020, and that 70% of all companies have some sort of plan or are working on a plan. So there's going to be lots of advice out there. Find a good guide as you go through that process, not just a vendor. It works best if you can find somebody that can really have a good conversation with you and help make sure that you're in alignment with that corporate vision and strategy.
You had mentioned something in there that I think is interesting, and maybe some companies aren't even quite there yet. You said the C-level executives, they've got this vision, they might have some concept around a couple digital transformation projects they want to undertake. What if a company is hearing those stats that you just said and said, darn it, I'm in that 30%. I'm in that 30% that isn't thinking about digital transformation right now, but I understand that we're behind the power curve. What's kind of their first step if they aren't in the mix here?
Yeah, so 30% is still not an insignificant part of the market. So the first thing is that you're not alone. There are plenty of people that are in that bucket. But if you don't have a plan and you don't have anything started, then really I think you've got to get back to, okay, what are the things that are impacting your organization? We have one company that was completely paper-based in what they did. And they noticed that they were losing market share because of it, because their competitors had already moved into a digital world where they were interacting with their customers through mobile apps and through websites and in a much more advanced way than they were. Well, the good news is that even though they were losing ground, the project that we're engaged with them on is it's probably going to take a year, but we're moving them into a mobile application, paperless, web-based solution that will put them maybe not as far along as some of their competitors, but they certainly won't be losing ground anymore. And so it doesn't have to be a monumental thing that is insurmountable. And looking at these projects that they don't have to take 2-3 years or hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. They can be broken up into smaller chunks and get initiatives that move you down that path. For this one company on their journey to a paperless engagement with their customers, it starts with digitizing some of the paper that they've got in file cabinets. That was part one. Now that we've got it captured, now we can do more things, make that information available to a broader audience. And so there are gains that you can make along that journey. So try not to feel overwhelmed. Things can be broken down and made consumable not only for your company to take on, but the users, and they'll have time to get accustomed to this new technology. Change management is a big piece of what we have to help people through as they change the way that they engage with employees and customers and vendors and all the other people that they interact with.
I love that you brought up a particular case study and a particular instance of a company that you're helping in their digital transformation journey. You mentioned some of the nuts and bolts and some of the processes that you're going through with them. Are you, knowing that we're kind of in your first stages with your engagement there, have you started to realize, or has the company started to realize some benefits from what you're doing here? And how has that sort of either improved their processes, streamlined them, made them more efficient?
Yeah, they started with us on the whole deployment was designed to be a phased implementation. So one of the problems that they had was an audit and compliance issue, where they were required to keep certain documents and be able to show an audit trail of how that document moved through their system. So that was, they were facing another audit that was coming up. That was a quick hit kind of thing. So we implemented a solution that allowed them to capture, control, and be able to share the requested documents with the auditors that met that compliance need. So they're doing that now. And as we're continuing work on the next aspect of the project, we're also working with their website team, and we're adding some functionality in the website that's going to interact with some of the things that we do. So there's a lot of work going on that's going to improve both their website as well as their back-end processes, just all along the way.
Another big picture question for you, Ryan, and this almost is analogous to the paper question, but everybody's talking about the cloud and moving to the cloud. Is this something that companies should go all in on, or how should someone approach those cloud versus on-premise solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. Cloud is part of most of the conversations that we have, but it's a part of the answer. It is not the be-all, end-all. We are seeing most of the new entrants in the software market coming. Well, the new entrants, a lot of them are cloud-based. So there are a lot of reasons definitely to consider the cloud. But for instance, in one conversation just 2 days ago that we had with the CIO, we asked him what his cloud strategy was as he's evaluating making changes to some of the platforms that he's using. And it was not a all cloud all the way. It was a hybrid approach. So he had identified some applications that were going to be premise-based. He had identified some applications that they were going to put in their cloud environment, and others that would be in the vendor's cloud environment. The vendor's cloud environment being like a Salesforce, where you don't own the servers or have any control over that. It's all a subscription-based model. So to him, it was a lot. The things that helped him determine that were the function of the software, where the user community was and what some of their needs and constraints are. That being said, one of the things that I think is most worthy of consideration in that evaluation process is your security practices. We're hearing more and more clients being hacked, and it happens a lot. And make sure that whatever you do, you pay attention to that. So is your environment more secure than the cloud environment? Is it more restricted than the cloud environment? What are your backup procedures? So should you get hacked, do you have your stuff, your information protected so that you've done everything possible to defend against some of those malware and ransomware and all those attacks that you're hearing about these days?
It's funny how some of these trends go from you swing the pendulum from the far end of one direction to the far end of another, and then it sort of somehow ends up in the middle here. So a cloud strategy oftentimes ends up being a hybrid IT cloud strategy these days. That said, what is really exciting in the industry right now? What new technologies should companies be taking advantage of?
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now, and I will say before we get into it, what I think is new and cool. Don't buy technology just for technology's sake. Have a good use for it. So I'm going to talk about a couple. Three come to mind. Two are things that are available and out now, and certainly people are using these and leveraging this technology to their great advantage. And another one is a little bit more on the horizon side of things. So first of all, the introduction of new mobile technology has really opened up more use cases for technology that has been in place for a while, thinking about just workflows. Workflows now with a mobile capability and mobile form, so we can extend the opportunity to access systems, processes, and data to a mobile app, to a mobile phone. And it doesn't have the expense or the overhead that it used to. So those same technologies that have been running AP processes or HR processes in the past, but confined to an inside the office scenario, now can be extended outside of that. So that's one area that I think people can really look to extend the value or get more out of technology that's available today. A second area that is a little bit newer, but definitely proven, is robotic process automation, or RPA. And RPA is really cool because these are software robots that learn a particular business process, a repetitive process that employees are doing on a daily basis. And we can have these robots perform these actions so that now the employees can get back to really adding value and adding the thought processes behind just the number crunching or the data crunching. So with the RPA, we've been able to do things like validate or integrate different systems, moving data from an accounting application over to a project management application. All that can be done hands off with fewer errors and fewer breaks than a person could do. We've used RPA technology to log into a vendor website and download 1,000 invoices from that site and stage them in your workflow tools for processing. And, these are steps that took a human hours and hours and hours to do during the day, and they're now reduced down to we're reducing that time significantly down to minutes or an hour, and so that's really cool. There's tons of applications for that robotic process automation. So that one's a lot of fun. The third that's still out there a little bit, and we're seeing a lot of investment going in there, and you've heard about it. People call it AI, artificial intelligence. There are more solutions starting to come to market now around that, and that's where the software is able to recognize patterns in approvals or behaviors or actions and make suggestions ahead of time, so that even in a process that they haven't seen before, it can say, hey, this looks a lot like the process you've been doing for a while. I'm going to suggest you go down this path. A lot of people are looking at that. So if you think of chatbots that pop up on certain web pages, you ask a question and you can kind of predict these answers based on the responses that the user provides, and the robot can then direct that conversation. they're getting better and better, and it's removing a lot of labor side, speeding up customer service. It's improving that customer interaction. So AI seems to be a little bit farther out there, but if you're looking for stuff that you could implement today, look at how you're deploying your current workflows. How can that be extended through mobile? And then RPA has got some really exciting potential.
Um, you had mentioned mobile, first of those three. Are there, and mobile something that is here, has been here for several years now. Are there particular industries or use cases that you think are slam dunks for companies with a mobile strategy?
Yeah, I think for a mobile strategy, anybody that's got a mobile workforce or people that are out in the field, we do a lot of work with construction companies, and they've got project managers and supervisors and field foremen that need access to information. You've got safety personnel that need to interact maybe with a mobile device for adding pictures or context to a particular activity or situation. That could also apply to retail chains, people with multiple locations. Working with industrial heating and air company here a little while ago that's got 24 different locations, and they're looking for their service techs to be able to interact with information, work orders, and tickets and things like that. So there's certainly a lot of opportunity for areas like that where field personnel are interacting with Office documents, and that's not Microsoft Office documents, but work orders, service tickets, service requests, things that are maybe used to be paper forms that people fill out can now be made into mobile forms or web forms. So those are areas that if you've got that situation, you probably have some opportunity there.
Ryan, these were some enlightening answers here. I do want to switch gears a little bit and chat with Brad, our subject matter expert, really when it comes to the nuts and bolts of some of this work here. So how, sort of first question for you is, how do companies manage compliance requirements and these retention schedules across multiple environments?
And really, when you think about it, it is difficult to maintain compliance when the systems are not shared. They don't have a central dashboard, if you would. So having an enterprise content solution provides a single dashboard to enforce the compliance requirements across all other applications. So again, having an enterprise system really enables them to better manage those compliance issues. And in today's environment, it's not unusual for an organization to be sued for many different reasons. So again, making sure they're compliant with all of their regulations and so forth is important. So a central dashboard helps to allow them to do that.
Mm-hmm. This harkens back to something that Ryan had talked about earlier with the case study with a company that you guys have a current engagement with. And similarly, thinking back to our conversation with Ryan, what are some things to help clients manage access to information from a security perspective?
In today's environment, all of our security is managed through what they call Active Directory. So if you're part of a group or specific group, then you have access to certain information. So again, a centralized content management solution provides a single interface to really manage that. So any organization that has a lot of different systems that are not interconnected, it's going to make it a lot easier if you've got a single interface to actually manage that security environment.
Yeah, just to add on to that, Ben, and I was just meeting with somebody that is having that challenge right now, and they're trying to set up rules and security profiles for network file shares, and they were using just their own network filing system, their Windows directory, to manage a lot of their information. It was a tremendous amount of work on the IT team there to not only identify those roles and access rights, but to manage that on an ongoing basis. So there are definitely better ways to do that than what a lot of people are doing right now.
Yeah, it just as the world becomes more complex, there's more and more systems that companies need to rely on, and that burden to manage all of that, or the need to connect all of those systems, I think is becoming more acute and more sophisticated to actually be able to tie everything together. We're talking about accounting systems, the design systems, project management, and you name it. What challenges does that create for your world? Um, how do you address potentially duplicate effort?
And really, one of the greatest costs of any system is really the infrastructure to manage those systems. And so implementing an enterprise solution allows an organization to share a single infrastructure across all applications. Obviously, this is going to reduce the total cost of ownership, which is really what we look at. And it also reduces the implementation time. So again, we try to tie it down to the true cost of ownership. So again, if we can have an enterprise system, the sharing the back-end infrastructure, it's going to make it a lot more cost effective for those organizations.
Another total cost of ownership question, really, and also a performance effectiveness of their tools. IT staffing to support these applications for businesses is always a concern for companies. What are some things that organizations can do to make it easier for their IT teams to support the business?
Yeah, and again, having a shared platform will streamline many of these processes rather than trying to manage multiple upgrades in a given period across multiple platforms. An enterprise solution means you have a single system to upgrade. And obviously the help desk, they want to be supportive. And so they not only need to be able to understand and troubleshoot the user's interface, but also be able to install the application, to back up the system and so forth. And having a single back-end system makes it easier for your IT staff to support those various systems.
You had mentioned about upgrades, and I'm wondering if you can flesh that out a little bit more. How does this support IT in terms of rolling out upgrades, ensuring that that process runs smoothly?
Yeah, so again, when you look at upgrading your systems, a lot of times you'll fall out of compliance with those companies that are providing that software. So you want to make sure that you keep all of your systems updated and in sync with those companies. If they have various platforms, various servers, then getting those out of sync can cause a lot of problems throughout the organization. So again, having a single platform, single infrastructure to be able to keep those in sync makes it a lot easier for the corporation and also easier for your IT staff to support and maintain.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Brad.
I think then we see a lot of companies that have one of the challenges that they face is they say, well, we've heard this from other IT leaders that one of the biggest challenges to manage all of the systems that they work with is a manager with a credit card, because there's so many smaller applications that can be purchased in a cloud or a recurring process or a recurring payment method. And then it becomes a burden on the IT staff to then support that and get the data from where it needs to be to where it needs to go. But they weren't involved in that decision process. So coming up with a standard to try to say, hey, at least let's try to make this an option first and minimize the number of applications that are out there. That can have a big impact on that IT staff, as well as the user community. Things are far along in technology that we know there's not going to be one source of truth for all content. But the more you can minimize and control that but make it easy for managers, departments, and other end users to get to it, there is some value there.
That brings up a huge issue, which is if you build it, they won't necessarily come. These applications, user acceptance is the other piece of the puzzle. It might have some of the technology and features that an organization needs, but the elephant in the room is will people use it? So any tips on keeping users engaged and properly using new tools?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, that's a huge effort for any organization. And having a single interface for all your content solutions means users are more proficient in using the application. And obviously, this is going to lead to really better and greater user acceptance. Let's face it, no one likes to have to learn new software, and this is especially true for upper management. And really, when you look at it, decision makers often need to pull information from multiple systems together to be able to make a decision. And really having a single tool that allows the manager to pull all of that together means the manager can make better decisions in a more timely manner. So again, It's more important to have all that information in one place, very easy for those managers to get to.
You've commented about the total cost of ownership. Now I'm wondering about the flip side of that coin. When companies invest in technology, how can they maximize their return on investment?
So again, I think, sharing the infrastructure is a big one. Also reducing the time to train employees, having a system that can easily share information and allowing users to collaborate with internal and external resources. That's a huge benefit. So again, there's a lot of things that go into, having a single system where all of your information is maintained. Makes it a lot easier for everyone to get to that information. And again, not only internal resources, but also external resources as you need to collaborate to make those decisions.
I think adding on to that, one thing that can really help is that top-down executive sponsorship, where we see a lot of people make decisions on a certain technology path and say, okay, this is going to be our standard. And then they start with one project and they get implementation fatigue is what we call it. So the first project may take a few months to get through, and the decision made, okay, well, let's take a breather for a minute and let's pay attention to other projects that we have in the lineup. And then they never quite circle back to getting to that enterprise rollout of whatever technology it is. It's not unique to us. So coming up with a plan and executive sponsorship to say, okay, once we get done with phase one, where does phase two fall in our project timeline? What about phase three? So not letting that project sit idle, and you got the first 10% of effectiveness out of it. So that was great. Congratulations on a job well done. But there's so much more that can be done. And those projects come at a lower cost to the organization because of the investments that you made in the first phase. So why not go get the high margin projects done next after you've made the initial investment? So again, our most successful clients are those that have a structured plan that aligns with the corporate vision, and they've got an executive sponsor that makes sure that that project continues after the initial rollout.
Wanted to bring up a different issue, but I have a hunch that it's related. Integrations, integration capabilities. Heck, it's even in your company's name. How are companies able to maintain all of these integrations to the different products and applications that we talked about?
The wrong way. Oh, I'm sorry. So again, most companies spend hours, rekeying information. So, you want to keep these systems integrated together. And so being able to keep the systems in sync is very important for these organizations. And as Ryan mentioned earlier, RPA, robotic automation. So what this allows you to do is take information that you used to have to key from one system to the other to keep them in sync to be able to make decisions. Again, this taking this human effort and automating that process and keeping these various systems in sync. So that's a huge win for the organizations, those that are out in the field that need to be able to maintain this information, but maybe they're relying on a separate system to pull this information from. Having this automation process to keep them in sync really benefits the entire organization.
So Brad, maybe how did we used to do integrations? I mean, if you think about what the benefit of the RPA stuff is versus the hard-coded integrations that we used to do.
Yeah, so it used to be, we had to do hard coding integration. So again, the RPA is going to automate that process. And there's a couple of ways we can use that technology. One is at the desktop level. So the user that's maybe going through and maybe they're keying information, they need to validate that information against a separate system. In the past, they may have had both systems up, making sure both systems are in sync. Well, once they key it in one system, it can go out and look at the secondary system, make sure the information is in sync, and then make sure that they both stay that way.
So what you're talking about, if I understand it correctly, is when you look at some of these systems and applications online, they might actually note that they integrate with some other systems. But with RPA, are you able to have sort of agnostic integrations? You can integrate across other applications that might not have those native integrations built in.
And that's a good point. We call it actually codeless integration. So a company's one of their biggest concerns is are we going to go into their existing systems that they have and start changing underlying code? And what this technology allows us to do is to really sit on top of that. So we're not having to go in and change any coding of their, let's say, ERP system. This also makes it a lot easier once they upgrade that ERP system. It's just some small changes that we have to make. Maybe some positions of some fields have changed and so forth. So again, we're not completely disrupting the systems that they have in place today. So again, we can integrate with any of the systems that are out there. It can be either desktop, it can be web-based, even the old green screen. So we can integrate with any of the systems that are out there, allowing them to stay in sync at any point in time.
Brad, you anticipated my next question there. I'm glad you addressed that in terms of upgrades as well, and then that makes that a relatively painless process there, using RPA as a technology. We've really covered a lot of ground. We've talked about integrations, we've talked about user adoption, we've talked about particular applications and how to get them all to sort of work with each other, and deal with things like total cost of ownership, and on the other hand, some of the benefits of these systems and solutions from an ROI and business process perspective. Any sort of parting thoughts or general thoughts at this point?
You know, I think as I look at the conversations that we've been having recently, we know that there's so much opportunity for organizations to leverage technology, and the big question is, why? And I think it's important for the companies that are considering these type of projects to consider value. And one of the things that we believe here at DTI is that we can help companies improve their value by letting them get the most out of their employees. And the way that you can improve what you get out of your employees is get rid of the friction points that stand between the employees and the things that they're capable of doing and the things that they have to do in order to keep the business moving. So the things that you want people to do are looking at the data and analyzing and getting a better understanding of how the company is functioning. That requires some thought and some leadership and stuff that can't be done by software or machines. What doesn't have to be done is about a bunch of data entry work, a bunch of moving data from point A to point B to point C and trying to create all of these different reports. And it's just, that takes away from the value of the organization. So look for ways that you can leverage technology to remove those friction points to let your employees really show the value that they can bring.
Let's say you're someone watching this and you're that executive sponsor and you know that you need to do something in terms of digital transformation to leverage your employees a little bit better, improve your business processes, et cetera, et cetera. What are their next steps? How do they get in touch with DTI?
Great question. The first step in all of this is really just to have a conversation. Figure out what that vision and direction is, and we'll figure out the way to go after that. There are a lot of different technologies out there, and technology is our business, so we can help guide you down that path. The best way to get in touch with us is to go to our website, dtiibs.com. Or give us a call. It's 336-1580. We're happy to start that conversation and figure out how to get you on the right path. And it'd be great if we can work together, but if not, we'll certainly point you in the right direction, and we can help be that guide for you.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It was really an engaging conversation. Appreciate all your words of wisdom here.
Thank you, Ben. Always enjoy talking to you.
Thank you.
All right. So what do you think?